Hello, John Rowell back here for another video. Today is Friday, September 12th, 2025. I hope you're doing well. Well, the topic for today is Dead End USA. You see there an image of different individuals with a salary on their shirt. So I wonder if you can guess what is common among that group. And if you guess that they were ones who only had a high school education, you are correct. That is the common point. So you can see here the 20,000 to 55,000 as the common salary range of high school graduates. And so there is a small number of high school graduates who are not working and not studying. They're about 15%, but the vast majority, especially when they hit around 25 years old, now they've had, 18 to 25. That would be like 5 or 6 years of working. So they have actually probably received some inflation adjustments and some raises. So even with that, you see 20,000 to 55,000. That is a formula for a dead end in this country because you're practically incapable of buying a home and having what would be considered a normal American lifestyle. So let me get right into some of the different ranges here for high school graduates. The most startling statistic for that group is that 5% or less of high school graduates over the age of 25 are earning over 100,000. So if you're sitting in high school and telling yourself that you're satisfied with a high school education and with that you're going to be wealthy and earn a high income, well, I'm sorry, the numbers at least don't support that assertion. So anyway, let's take a look at some of these other income ranges. So we have the 20,000 to 35,000. That's 30%. That's one third. Wow. Another third, a little more than a third, is the 35 to 55,000. So anyway, then we have a small number who are either underemployed, not employed, or just earning really extremely low income. And we have the those over 55,000. That's 10 to 15%. So let's say it's 10%. So um, let's put the two together here. So let's say 15%, under 20%, or between 15 to 20% of high school graduates over 25 years old are earning over 55,000, and that still doesn't get you into a home. In many areas of this country, homes are now over 300,000. So there's been some insane price rises and increases in the real estate in many parts of the United States. But we're just going to focus here on high school and what's going on. And so, again, if you're sitting in high school thinking, I'm just depending on high school to get me to the good life in this country, well, join the 5%. Um, and so that means luck or maybe um, some other reason why the person was able to get that income. And but the rest of them, the majority of them, let's take the 30% here for this income range and 40%, that's 70% of the high school graduates will be somewhere in the 20 to $55,000 range. So we're talking about, home and a car, and maybe a car for your, for, let's say you're married, and the your wife wants to stay home, so she's not working, and then you have kids, and then you have groceries, uh, and so at 20,000, 20,000 a year, and then the federal government will take its chunk. Um, by the time you pay rent and pay everything else, you probably have very little left. And so this is called Dead End USA. Why? Because this is a formula for poverty. And unfortunately, this poverty perpetuates because you live in poverty, and then your children grow up in that and think that somehow um, they can jump ship on their education and start off in the working world and find the magic formula for poverty, and they'll wind up in the same boat. So this whole poverty perpetuation is now looking to be more the path of high school graduation. So let's take a little look at why that is. Why we've had the problems with why is high school not helping the youth get to where they need to go? And so historically, high schools were created as kind of a complement to either the farming or factory lifestyle. So let's say your father or you had a farm. So if you were a young man, you would probably be taking over that farm or going somewhere else and getting your own property and starting a farm. And if you were a daughter of a farmer, you would probably marry someone who had a farm and continue the farming lifestyle. Three-fourths of the United States was into farming, so and the rest were in factories. There were coal mines, there were the steel factories, there were all the, they basically in the United States we made everything for the United States that we needed: the shirts, the shoes, the socks, um, the sheets, the beds, the bed frame, the headboards, and everything that was needed in this country was made here. But then a lot of those jobs, the the coal mines closed, the steel uh, the steel mills or steel plants closed, and even the the where they made the medicines, those closed and were sent overseas. Because in the end, what happens in this country is that the people who have the money to start a factory and run a factory see that they can move their factory overseas, and it's cheaper to make the same product overseas, ship it back to this country, and sell it, and they'll make a higher profit. And the politicians just stepped out of the way and let all these jobs leave the country. So anyway, before you could be in high school, study in high school, then go right into a factory or go to a farm, and you would have a pretty comfortable lifestyle. Of course, farming is hard work, and you can have good years and you can have bad years. If you have a really bad year, your farm can go under. But basically, most people were finding a way to making that farming lifestyle work out. And um, so then what happens is that over time, the high school education, when all those jobs went overseas, when the job market became more competitive, when the high paying jobs required, 4 years of college or even, higher degrees than that, and specializations, then those who are just graduating from high school were, falling behind in their income, and they were no longer competing for good jobs. They were having to go to grocery stores to stock shelves, or they were security guards, uh, at nighttime, and so they started taking worse and worse and worse employments. And the companies that did have high paying jobs in this country began to bring workers from overseas instead of building training facilities here in this country to get native employment for all these jobs. So this all is kind of compounding the whole problem. But even if you go to, college, college became prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. It used to be that even in a private school, you could work a day job and then go to night classes, and you could graduate. Um, I wouldn't say within 4 years, but you could get a 4-year degree and a year or two extra. And so people were graduating private schools debt free. Now, if you're going to a private university, you're looking at a huge um, debt that you have to carry, and eventually you'll have to pay back. I think President Biden was trying to clean off all that debt, but the problem isn't the debt. The problem is the whole system, which allows the universities to charge such outrageous amounts for really what is education that gets them into a basic starter job. So anyway, if we take a look at someone who's in a low income now we're taking the high school graduate, they're working at a low income job, and now their kids want to go get education. Well, really the only path that they have available is to live at home and to go to a community college. That's about it. So fortunately, where I live, there's a good community college not too far away, and and they also provide a lot of job training for people to get immediately into the working world, which is great. But um, anyway, if you wanted to get those good tech jobs, you're never gonna get them going to study at a community college. So in a certain sense, you get a 2-year degree from a community college. You've kind of bumped yourself up from the high school level, but you're still not in the salary range you need in order to buy a home and to have the lifestyle which is considered to be the traditional American lifestyle. And so um, let's go into this whole question. Let's see now here. What were we working on? Okay, so um, if we take someone who's working a minimum wage in this country and they want to buy a $300,000 home, if they're earning $7.25 an hour, it means they need to work 230 hours per week. So, can you imagine working 230 hours per week? I mean, kind of hard. Now, if you're earning $15 an hour, you're working 111 hours per week. I guess that's doable, right? We have heard of people working at Goldman Sachs working 80 hours per week. I mean, that's basically every waking hour. You're just getting, some a light breakfast at home, going to work, and then coming home to sleep, and then repeating the same thing. That's 80 hours, and this is 111 hours per week, working at $15 per hour to get into a $300,000 home. Now, let's say a lot of you, if you're living in California, good luck finding a $300,000 home, um, and even finding a $500,000 home. But let's go with this figure here, $500,000 home. If you're earning a minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, you're looking at working 400 hours per week. So, yeah, good luck with that. And if you're earning $15 an hour, you're looking at almost 200 hours per week. Wow, that's amazing. So that's like Goldman Sachs times almost times three, in one week. So you're not even getting breakfast and you're not even sleeping. So that's a ridiculous number of hours. So that's all this is impossible for anyone at $15 an hour or less. 111 hours per week, I mean, there's no way. even people working 80 hours per week, eventually they break down. You can't sustain that pace. And then if you have a family, you need to spend time with your family. With, the couple needs to be together. If not, I mean, it's like, they see each other for 5 minutes every day, and the rest of the time they're working. That's not, good either. So, um, anyway, let's go back to the whole thing about the high school. So, um, you can see the ranges. This is, going back to this whole idea that if you get a high school education, you have a 5% chance of having a halfway decent salary. Not even, 100,000. That will get you into a basic home in many areas. It won't get you into a nice home. Um, but let's go back to this whole thing about, high school. The high schools were initiated with a purpose. It was to take people who already had an idea, a very clear idea of what they're going to do the rest of their life, and how they're going to, earn an income and make a living, and just help them, have a little bit of a better understanding of the world, to get math. Of course, if you're a farmer, you need to know math, but you're going to get taught math one way or the other. And the farm, you're going to have to figure that out. So you get some basic knowledge, and it was to give you just a little bit extra so you could, carry on society and know where your place and what's going on, with politicians and all those things. But a lot of the education was kind of on the job. So, but for a lot of people, who want to get out of poverty, high school is probably the last chance saloon. So in this country, we need to rethink the whole purpose of the high school and what it's for. So we need to take the idea of the community college, which is probably the best opportunity for the low income individuals to get a college education and get into the working world and get a little bit of a better salary. Take that and move that idea into the high school. So, I know in Canada we have the 13th grade. And so the 13th grade, basically in Canada, they would graduate from high school in the 12th grade, and the 13th grade is like the first year in college. So they don't have to leave home, and they get the first year of college. I'm wondering, if they get the first year of college, why not just have a 14th grade and then they can graduate? But the I guess the problem there is that many of the high schools wouldn't be able to have all the technical equipment and trained teachers on staff. So, but in any case, um, uh, you know, as a country, we need to rethink this whole, um, the purpose of the high school. High school shouldn't be about, um, test scores, because that doesn't really benefit the young people. It should be about purpose driven education. So if we have good jobs in this country that pay really well and require very technical knowledge, why can't we incorporate that into the high school education? You say, well, they still need to learn X, Y, and Z, and they're never going to teach those in high school. Or we need a more competitive environment in high school so that only the best get into this program. Well, um, I think the idea of the elitism and the excluding people from opportunities is probably a good sign that we're on the wrong track. But anyway, we need to, as a country, we need to rethink the whole idea of the high school, because the high school is now the greatest factory of poverty we have in this country. So with a high school education, it gets you literally nothing. Let me go back to this. This is your future. if you got a high school education and you're not gonna get a college degree, this is your future. These salary ranges here, and um, we can go back here, and you have a 5% chance of getting a salary of over 100,000 if you're at the age of 25 or older, if you just have a high school only education. So um, this is a formula for defeat, for failure in this country. And generally, in the United States, we've tried to be successful as we could with everything we do. But unfortunately, all these funds that go off to support education really doesn't provide any greater opportunity. And in high school, it's so important that the kids do their homework and they're to school, on time, and they don't miss class. But how about they go to the 4 years and then they're basically dumped on the street corner, and now they're into poverty? So what did all that running around, all that hysteria about high school, uh, homework and attendance and all that, what does that really mean? That means nothing. When the kid graduates and they say, okay, goodbye, have fun in poverty. So anyway, I think Dead End USA, we have to change this whole mentality that we have, or we will continue to digress as a country. Other countries will continue to jump ahead of us. And, President Trump is talking about China's getting ahead of us. We got to slow them down. We have to put the brakes on their development. Well, the ones we're putting the brakes on are ourselves. And until we fix this, we're not going to be challenging anyone anytime soon. And all these countries that we once thought were third world countries, with, second class educational institutions and second class roads and second class cities, they're going to leap ahead of us. And then we're going to wake up in an America which is a dump, and which is not going to be a good place for our kids. So, and the people with the good education and with that they're either going to huddle up in all these wealthy subdivisions and exclude everyone else and hang out in all their ritzy elitist clubs, or they're going to get on a plane and leave the country, and then now we will have the brain drain. So anyway, I think it's something to think about. We need to fix this problem, and if we don't, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at America, which is becoming poor by the day, and which will be worse by the day. So, anyway, that was my video regarding the Dead End USA. If you have any comments, please leave it below. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Have a good day. Bye bye.